Welcome to the 13th meeting of the Health, Social Care and Sport Committee in 2025. I've received no apologies for this meeting. First item on our agenda today is for the committee to agree to take items 3 and 4 in private. Are members agreed? The next item is an evidence session with the Minister for Public Health and Women's Health and supporting officials on the Tobacco and Vapes Bill Supplementary Legislative Consent Memorandum LCM S651A, which was lodged in the Scottish Parliament by the Cabinet Secretary for Health and Social Care on the 28th of March 2025. The legislative consent process set out in Chapter 9B of Standing Orders requires the Scottish Government to notify the Parliament by means of a legislative consent memorandum whenever a UK Parliament bill includes provision on devolved matters. Each LCM is referred to a lead committee to scrutinise the LCM and report on it before the Parliament decides whether to give its consent to the UK Parliament legislating in the manner proposed. The Tobacco and Vapes Bill was introduced in the House of Commons on the 5th of November 2024. The purpose of the bill is to make provision about the supply of tobacco, vapes and other products, including provision prohibiting the sale of tobacco to people born on or after the 1st of January 2009. To make provision about the licensing of retail sales and registration of retailers, and to enable product and information requirements to be imposed in connection with tobacco, vapes and other products. To control the advertising and promotion of tobacco, vapes and other products, and to make provision about smoke-free places, vape-free places and heated tobacco-free places. The committee has previously taken evidence from the Minister on LCM S651 at its meeting on the 17th of December 2024. On the 18th of March 2025, the UK Government lodged an amendment to the Tobacco and Vapes Bill which inserts a new clause which extends only to Scotland and is not covered by the original LCM S651, therefore triggering the need for supplementary LCM S651A, which we are considering this morning. This new provision pertains to age verification and will give Scottish ministers the power to prescribe methods, including but not limited to showing of a document which can establish a person's age. And I welcome to the committee Jenny Minto, MSP, Minister for Public Health and Women's Health, Professor Linda Bald, OBE, Chief Social Policy Advisor, Fiona Dill, Teams Lead for Tobacco, Gambling, Diet and Healthy Weight Directorate, and Rosie McQueen, lawyer for the Scottish Government. And I invite the Minister to make a brief opening statement.
Thank you, Convener, and thank you, Committee. Since I provided evidence on the 17th of December, the Tobacco and Vapes Bill has continued to progress through the UK Parliament with its second reading in the House of Lords on the 23rd of April. And I'm delighted to say that there continues to be a cross-party support for the bill and creating a tobacco-free country for future generations. Today we are here to discuss the supplementary legislative consent memorandum that was lodged in our Parliament in relation to the Tobacco and Vapes Bill on the 28th of March, which specifically relates to an amendment on age verification. The amendment, which is set out in clause 60 of the bill, ensures that we have the ability to prescribe more age verification options in what is an ever more digital world. Currently, someone accused of selling products contrary to the age of sale restrictions in Scotland may have a defence if they check certain prescribed identity documents. This clause amends the Tobacco and Primary Medical Service Scotland Act 2010 so that instead Scottish ministers will have a power to prescribe a wider range of methods of age verification in regulations. Once commenced, the current prescribed list of documents on the face of the 2010 Act will be removed, but can effectively be replaced by regulations. Ministers will have flexibility to authorise digital forms of age verification in future, should they be satisfied that it is appropriate to do so at that time. Scottish ministers will have the power to commence these changes by regulations, giving flexibility as to when new regulations need to be brought forward. Consideration will be given to whether consultation is needed and, if so, the nature of such consultation depending on the content of future regulations. Insofar as new powers are being granted to the Scottish Ministers to make regulations, regulations made under them will be subject to the negative procedure. The Scottish Parliament will therefore have the opportunity to closely scrutinise the content of those regulations to ensure these meet the needs of Scottish policy. This amendment will ensure that Scottish Ministers have the ability in future to accommodate developments in age verification and will enable the Scottish Parliament to appropriately scrutinise any such proposals and associated regulations in more detail at the relevant stage of that process. I therefore recommend that the Scottish Parliament consents to this supplementary legislative consent memorandum.
Thank you very much, Minister. We have a number of committee members who have some questions, and I'll go first to Sanders Gohani.
Thank you, Convener. And just a question of interest as a practising NHS GP. Morning, Minister. So a few things that I'd like some clarification on, if that would be okay. In the legislation, there will be some repealing and then reenactment, but I haven't seen anything about people who buy products for those who are underaged. Will that not be repealed and remain the same as it is right now?
So, if I remember correctly, when I was at the committee in December, you asked a similar question. And this is around, if I understand you correctly, it's around whether people under age that buy tobacco products will then be charged.
Sorry, Minister, no.
No.
So if, for example, I were to buy products for somebody who is underage and give it to them.
Oh, so proxy purchasing.
Yes.
My apologies, I misunderstood your question. No, there is absolutely no change in that. Proxy purchasing would still fall under this bill.
Okay. Could you explain to me what a herbal product is?
I think what I might do is hand over to Professor Bald.
Sure. So herbal products, don't need to press it, sorry, are normally made from herbs we might find in our garden, other constituent parts. They don't contain tobacco and they don't contain nicotine, and they're rolled up like a cigarette. So they're often marketed as a healthier alternative to smoked tobacco. But we do have concerns about herbal products because obviously they cause combustion. And when you're inhaling something, as I know you and I think we touched on this at the last committee, it's that combustion that still causes some harm.
Okay, thank you. Snus is another area I'd like to briefly touch upon. The last time I questioned you, Minister, we spoke about snus and the dangers that are associated, but actually it goes, I think, a bit further than simply this one product. So it is products like this that I am not sure if that is forming part of the ban that occurs. So if you could clarify that. And the other point I'd like to raise is, given that in Waverley Station we saw these products being handed out to people for free as a trial, I think that we probably need to do a bit more in this area.
I absolutely agree that we need to do a bit more, and with regards to these novel products, if I may call them that, and I think that is exactly what this bill is aiming to do, is to bring products like heated tobacco and snus, as you've talked about, into the legislation to ensure that we do have better powers to reduce their availability to young people and older people as well. If I understand correctly, there is still a lot of evidence gathering going on in this area, so we need to ensure that we've got the robust evidence for that. So
snus, as you know, the term snus traditionally has applied to the low nitrosamine tobacco products that are already illegal in the UK that come from Sweden. So but people have used the term snus to apply to nicotine pouches, which are a different product. It's synthetic nicotine. And I think those are definitely the ones I saw as well, unfortunately, in Waverley Station that were being given away. And that kind of free distribution is, will be covered under the legislation. So in terms of the evidence on those, it's very limited. So we've only had them in the market in the last few years. They're going to be significantly less harmful than smoking, I'm pretty confident from what we know about their constituents. There's been some studies that have looked at periodontal disease and oral health, where again, not as harmful as oral tobacco, but still some concerns. We know they're addictive. We expect there's going to be a cardiovascular response because nicotine raises the heart rate, etc. But still very, very early. And we haven't had any large randomised control trials in the UK looking at nicotine pouches, etc. So wait and see. I would say there's still, the bill is trying to strike a balance and keeping products available to people who smoke and who may use vaping or even a nicotine pouch as a cessation aid, while recognising that, what we saw in Waverley is about marketing these products, including to young people, which is absolutely something we need to tackle, and I think the legislation is trying to address that.
Okay. Thank you.
Arthur.
Thank you. Thanks, Karina. Microphone. Thank you. Good morning to you, everybody. I've got a couple of questions just about some of the products, and what's coming to my mind right now is disposable products are having USB adapters added to them that may or may not work, and so they are then not single-use product if they're rechargeable. But how will this legislation help look at the evolving market of products that claim to be multi-use rechargeable when actually they're single-use disguised with a USB connection?
I thank Emma Harper for her question, because that's something that we've had a number of conversations about when looking at this legislation, and have challenged when we recognised that there was some products that may or may not be described as rechargeable just simply because they have the USB point in. The legislation has been drafted as broadly as possible. There is also a requirement that if it has a removable coil, then that would then define it as fitting in with the legislation, but we are or not being rechargeable. So that's the work that we've been looking at, and I absolutely recognise that we need to make sure that we're capturing all the new products that come in. So legislation has been drafted as broadly as possible.
Okay, and my other question was around about supporting the local authorities in terms of the trade and standards to monitor who's selling the products, because I'm aware that taxi drivers will sell the product, or there's a local Chinese restaurant in Dumfries that sells the products, and it didn't used to sell cigarette products, but now it sells vapes. So what is the Scottish Government doing or can do to help support the tracking of products that are being sold?
So we have very extensive conversations with Trading Standards, and we've been speaking to them throughout the drafting and the passage of this bill through the UK Parliament, and in line with the work that we need with regard to pass the LCMs. In Scotland, we have our register, which is for anyone that is selling tobacco products, and that register will be expanded to include the new products as part of this legislation. We've just invested in that, and it's got a far better outreach. It means that we can have direct conversations with those retailers that are selling these products. I think it's important to underline that there is currently legislation to ensure that retailers do not sell to underaged people, and currently these are the purchaser needs to provide evidence of their age, and what this LCM or this LCM amendment is looking at is allowing us to shift it from just being simply paper documents, but also to be digital accessible documents as well.
Okay. And just a final question, because I think Convener has questions as well, around advertising and marketing. And, there's certain things that, we don't have control over in Scotland in terms of TV advertising, but local bus stops and bus shelters and things like that we can. And the American Lung Association have a programme called Get Your Head Out the Clouds, and that is aimed at parents who would say, my kids would never vape. And so is there an opportunity to support like widening the information so that people can understand the damage that is happening to your lungs if you're vaping. And I'm saying this as a nurse, but also as a co-convener of the Lung Health Cross-Party Group, because we've had loads of discussions about the ill health consequences of vaping.
Yes, absolutely. And Fiona and I had a very helpful visit to one of the secondary schools in Edinburgh, specifically to talk about parents who, actually fathers who were concerned about their children accessing vapes. We have had a campaign, which I can't remember the name of on the top of my head.
It's called the Take Hold campaign.
Take Hold campaign. I can picture it. My apologies. The Take Hold campaign, and we used that advertising at the Scottish Women's Cup final round the advertising standard hoardings at Tynecastle last year, which again really shifted people's awareness. And that Take Hold campaign was directed specifically at parents. Through posters, but also short podcasts as well. So a very important campaign to ensure that parents recognise the concerns there are around vaping for children.
And we would continue to support raising awareness of the dangers of nicotine products that are being inhaled.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Minister, we're all very aware of the smoking cessation programmes that operate across the country. However, if we're stopping single-use vapes, if we're stopping young people being able to buy vapes, we're potentially left with a population who have a nicotine addiction. So can you maybe expand on some of the work that is being done to help support them to stop vaping? And if there's been any work done round about nicotine replacement therapy for those affected?
Yes, you're absolutely right. Smoking within Scotland has kind of stubbornly stayed around the 15%. So we've been working hard with Public Health Scotland to get really in-depth data so we can understand where we need to focus that work. We also work very closely with community pharmacies and provide them with support, and quite often you can see the posters there. We also clearly work very closely with the health boards, and last year we baselined funding within NHS budgets to ensure that they were able to spend the money specifically for cessation products and support as their local needs required it. So it's very much a combined area of work to ensure that we are supporting people who are addicted to nicotine products, whether that be cigarettes or vapes. In fact, I've had a few letters from concerned parents about this, so we're always able to point them in the direction of the smoking vaping cessation support that we have in Scotland.
So are young people who are not 18, are not 16, are they able to access that? And is there an evidence base for the nicotine replacement therapy in young people of that age?
So the evidence base is being built up just now, but yes, most definitely young people smoking or vaping can access these support facilities. Linda.
There's actually a new study that's been funded. So the evidence on vaping cessation generally, rather than smoking cessation, is still quite early, again, because we haven't had a lot of services and evidence to support that. But there is a new CSO-funded study in Scotland on youth vaping cessation. My colleague, Dr. Fiona Dobie, is leading. So I think that's going to be really interesting to look at. But it's great that young people can access the services, but of course we absolutely need more evidence.
And again, that's the importance of working with Public Health Scotland as well, so we get that information through the health surveys.
Gillian Mackay.
Thanks, Nina. Particularly around the age verification and the supplementary
LCM, when there are new forms of identification coming on board, we obviously have Challenge 25 and things like that at the moment. How quickly does government envisage us being able to skill up the workforce that are selling these products to make sure that we don't inadvertently have young people accessing things they shouldn't, or people who are maybe trying to use these products for cessation being unnecessarily refused?
I think that's a really good question, and it's something that we were just talking about earlier as well. This LCM amendment will allow us to include digital ways of getting ID, but it won't stop the paper side. So we will not be repealing the paper forms of identification from the 2010 Act until we have the new regulations in place. To do these regulations, we will do some consultation to ensure that we get it right. But it is these important conversations that we have with trading standards and also the regulatory review group as well, representing businesses, that we will understand what is the best way of implementing these if that decision is made. But also we have, as I highlighted earlier, the register, which has been updated, which will allow for us to push out information to retailers so they are kept informed of any changes.
That's great. And on designation of smoke and vape-free places, there's obviously very good compliance at the moment with the ban on smoking indoors and things like that, but there are other spaces at the moment, I'm thinking particularly around hospitals and places like that, where those smoke-free zones aren't currently working particularly well. How does government envisage more smoke and vape-free places being enforced properly when we can't currently enforce the ones we've got?
So again, a question that I speak often to officials about. We've currently got Ash Scotland doing a piece of review work with regard to the smoke-free spaces around hospitals and how that is being enforced. We will be using that to look at the possibility of perhaps other spaces. But again, consultation is important. We will have that as a part of an evidence base, but we will then go out and consult more widely, as I've highlighted before, RRG and other organisations.
And is there a plan to officially bring in a ban on vapes in indoor spaces? Because obviously at the moment, while most shopping centres and things like that will not allow it to happen, there isn't a ban in the same way that there is with smoking indoors. Is there a plan to do that? Because I think that's one of the things that has made it a success, is having that official ban in place on smoking indoors.
I agree, and I'm often in circumstances, ferries for example, where there is a specific announcement that goes out. Fee, can I bring you in, please?
Yes, so that section of the bill will be up for consultation. So we've not made those decisions yet. The Ash Scotland review that Minister mentioned as well is looking at the expansion of smoke-free and I think they term it aerosol-free spaces as well. So we'll look at that evidence alongside other evidence to decide what the best way forward is. So no decisions taken as yet.
That's great. Thanks, Convener.
No other member has indicated that they have any questions, so can I thank the Minister and her officials for attending today and for your evidence. At our next meeting on Tuesday the 13th of May, the committee will continue its scrutiny of the Right to Addiction Recovery Scotland Bill, taking oral evidence from 2 panels of witnesses, and that concludes the public part of our meeting today.